The days of women going to work in excruciating pain because of their monthly menstrual cycle are over, at least in Spain that is. Before I get into this groundbreaking legislation, this is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss various legal topics so that you know what's going on around you. Occasionally we touch on celebrity shenanigans, but only if there's a legal theme to what's going on in their life and that you can learn from their mishaps, because they have public lives and we can always learn something from the shenanigans going on around us. And if you like that sort of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share with anyone else who you think will find value in this sort of content. Also, I want to introduce that I started a new YouTube channel. It's called Access Wellness Abroad, and it's a channel dedicated to discussing how various countries have adopted different policies to encourage wellness in their countries. And it's an opportunity for you, if you're located in the United States, to see what other countries are doing to encourage wellness and health in their society. Also, within that, I'm inviting you to partake in a trip, a wellness trip abroad to Colombia in South America. It's a 2-week trip where you will be allowed to access medical facilities, healthcare, and dental care at a fraction of the cost that you would pay in the United States. There's so many Americans, it's around almost 50% of Americans that do not have healthcare or have inadequate healthcare, that don't cover implants or crowns or any sort of complicated dental procedures, even if you have health insurance. So if you're one of those Americans who just have inadequate healthcare and you need to have your teeth fixed, this is really a great opportunity for you to sign up, come to Colombia, and get the care that you need at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost in the United States. And if you're curious about the healthcare in the United States compared to Colombia, and you think Colombia's healthcare is not as effective and they may be using prehistoric equipment, au contraire. Colombia's medicine is very developed. It is ranked 22nd in the world, whereas the United States and Canada ranked 37th, I believe, respectively. United States and Canada are ranked lower than Colombia. And most of the major hospitals in South America happen to be located in Colombia. So I just give you that as an example as to how robust and extensive healthcare is in Colombia, with 95% of Colombians having access to healthcare. The small percentage of Colombians that do not have access to healthcare live in remote areas and aren't aware of the policy that is encouraging more and more Colombians to sign up and have healthcare. But a great majority of Colombians have healthcare, and is a medical tourism destination because of the low cost of healthcare and the efficiency in both administratively and medically that it offers the world. So it's really, really a gem. So if you have the opportunity to take off 2 weeks of work and travel to Colombia to not only get healthcare, but also be immersed in wellness, my trip will be a holistic approach to wellness, and that's why I dedicated the channel to Access Wellness Abroad, because it's not just about medicine, it's also about how you are treated when you visit the medical facility. It's about sunlight, it's about healthy food, it's about without pesticides, it's about friendly people. It's about exercise, it's about walking, it's about taking time to rest. So all of that will also be included in the trip. So not only will you have the opportunity to see physicians or to see a dentist at a fraction of the cost, you'll also be able to tour and see the vibrant culture of Colombia, and also have the opportunity to work with our yoga instructor and our trainer and meditation. So all of that will be included in the trip. So it's a very, very rich trip. It's for 2 weeks, which I know is ambitious, but hopefully you have the time off of work, and it's during the summer. So we expect this trip to be around July 2023. I'm not exactly sure the dates as of yet, but as soon as I know, I will let you know. But again, it's a 2-week trip. So if you have FMLA, I'll discuss that a little bit in this video. This is a really, really good time for you to take charge of your health, because the government of the United States is not going to save you. They don't care about you being healthy. They don't care about your wellness. You have to take your health into your own hands. And if you do have the money to pay $6,000–7,000 for an implant, you have the money to come to Colombia and pay a fraction of that. I'm talking about 60 to 70% less than what the United States is charging for just the implant. So join me on this trip. It will be a life-changing experience for you, and you'll get to see the beautiful culture. So now that we are done with that spiel, let's get into this legislation, this groundbreaking legislation. Spain is leading Europe in being the first country to allow women to have menstrual leave. So they now have the option to stay home for 3 to 5 days, or extend it if they have the documentation from a physician, if they feel uncomfortable during their periods. It is the first nation in Europe to pass this sort of legislation and to grant women this level of support in the workplace, and it's paid leave. And if you're a woman, you will appreciate this type of law. Cramps, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting for many women. So the law requires a doctor's note, and the public social security system will foot the bill for the woman to actually see the doctor. Out of 185 votes cast in the parliament, 154 were in favor of the menstrual leave. And Spain is not alone in this new legislation. Women are also provided time off during their periods in Japan, Indonesia, and Zambia. And several organizations have also voiced opposition to this plan, saying that it may lead or increase stigmatization of women who have periods. The main labor organization in Spain, the Union General de Trabajadores, has criticized the measures. And according to the group, they say that this law can stigmatize women in the workplace. And I don't see how that could be the case. Stigmatize them how? That men know that women get their periods? But I don't see that. I think that's just ridiculous to assume that there's any further stigmatization towards women who decide to use this policy and accept that the government is supporting them and know that their bodies are different from men. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think this sort of legislation can further stigmatize women or liberating women? I can't see it being an avenue for further stigmatization of women in the workplace, because all men know women receive their periods, and then they have these snarky jokes they make about women anyway, like, oh, she must be on her period, that's why she's in a bad mood. Oh, she must be late because she's on her period. So I don't think it discourages any more misogyny that's in the workplace already. But let me know. As a matter of fact, I think it gives women grace in the workplace to say that our bodies are different, we should be treated differently because of that, and there should be legislation in place that protects women's body. Or do you think women would abuse this policy and want to stay home even though it's not their cycle, and that leaves for women to abuse it instead of going to work? I don't necessarily think so, because most workplaces have the remote workplace model in place. So I asked Sandra, my dear friend who also works with me, about the policy, because she's located in Spain. She lives in Spain. She works for a Canadian company, but that doesn't matter because the Spanish legislation trumps. If that company is operating in that nation, then the Spanish legislation will trump. And she said she hasn't used it. She doesn't need to use it. And other women that she works with don't need to use it. So as you can see, it is earmarked, and the women can police themselves and not abuse it unless they need it. And so they're working on the honor code system, which I think is remarkable, not policing women. Like, do you really have documentation of severe cramps or fibroids that require you to come home? No. The legislation does not require women to provide that level of documentation. They just do have to go to a physician for a doctor's note if they plan on staying home. So that is my account of it in regards to how frequently women are using it. She's located in Spain, and she said she hasn't used it since it was unveiled, I believe, in January or February of 2023. But let me know if you know more about this policy. This law in Spain also includes a new paid prepartum leave for women at the 36th week of pregnancy. So up until the moment of birth, women are allowed to stay home. The provision of also contraceptives, the morning after pill, as well as, which I thought was really interesting, the prohibition of surrogacy, declaring the practice a form of violence against women. And many other countries are also banning surrogacy. Now, proponents of the ban of surrogacy say that the law turns children into a product with an exchange value, and surrogacy exploits women's bodies exclusively for childbirth, just to hand them over to families and to people who asked her to give birth to it in exchange for money. And so proponents of banning surrogacy say that this practice is based on patriarchal representation of women just being useful as it relates to their bodies to bear children. And it's fragmented, and women are more useful than just vessels to bring life into the world. So as you can see, compared to the United States, which has FMLA for new mothers, other countries are adopting very robust policies. Now, if you're not aware, FMLA requires 12 weeks of unpaid leave annually for mothers of newborn or newly adopted children if they work for a company with 50 or more employees, or for the federal government. So this already separates a segment of women who will not qualify. FMLA only ensures the job security of the new mother employee, but does not protect employees. For companies that offer paid leave, receiving the correct payment from being on leave is between the person and the firm for which they work. Because of that 50 or more employees threshold, this already leaves out 40% of women who do not qualify for the Family Medical Leave Act. And only 12% of women who work in the private sector have access to any sort of paid maternity leave, because it's up to the discretion of the state in which they work, as well as whether or not the company wants to adopt this policy. So as you can see, there's still a lot of women who don't have access to FMLA. So if a woman works for a company located in a state and that company has 50 or more employees, she may be entitled to unpaid leave. And the paid part has to be worked out between the employer and the woman. It's not a guaranteed right. The only states right now with active policies, FMLA policies, California, Rhode Island, and New Jersey. Very short list. And 25% of women are forced back to work within 2 weeks of giving work because of the unpaid leave in order to support their families. And America says they care about the children. The United States is the only high-income country to not offer paid maternity leave on a federal level, meaning that this is the law at a federal level. All states must implement it. Paid leave is guaranteed in 178 other countries, the United States not being one of them. And I think everyone can agree that these facts are pretty dismal and disappointing. And as a country, the United States has failed to adapt to the changing tide, where the workplace is about 50% women. Women make up a significant portion of the United States GDP, and women are not men and face a whole host of challenges, especially during their childbearing ages. And that should be accounted for in the legislation. But of course, it is not. But other countries are moving in the direction to earmark and treat women differently, not in a discriminatory way, but a holistic way to say you're different. Therefore, we want to implement policies so that you can be a participant in the workforce, in our GDP, so that we can grow and evolve as a country. If women didn't work, the United States would not be able to maintain the economic status that it has. If women continue also to opt out of having children because their government, the society, does not support women having children and returning to the workplace, that can cause a great economic stress, not only currently, but future generations. And for the majority of US workers at companies with fewer employees than 50 employees, there's no legal requirement for paid leave or unpaid leave. So like I mentioned, 25% of women give birth and 2 weeks later have to return to work in order to support their family. The United States, again, is the only country among the 38 members Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, that does not pass laws that require businesses and corporations to offer paid maternity leave to their employees. What do you think about this? Again, this is a channel that's dedicated to discussing various legal topics. If you are a woman or you're soon to be a mother, this is something that you should be clamoring your state legislation about in order that they implement something in place so that you have the right to paid leave. Even just a few months ago, I remember seeing an interview with a woman who was currently working at a company in a state that did not offer her paid medical leave, and she wanted to have children. Or was it she wanted to have children? And she left that job, moved to another state that offered paid medical leave, and began working part-time, I believe, for Starbucks, because Starbucks has has democratized healthcare for their employees, and offers all of their employees who work, I believe the minimum is 20 hours a week, the right to have healthcare. So she relocated in order to have better access to healthcare, moved her whole family to another state so that she can have that, as well as have family medical leave, paid leave from work. Let me know what you think about this policy. This is abysmal. America really needs to do better as it relates to this if they want their country to continue to grow.